Welcome, Josh Secsov, to the Larpar Show, where we talk about what is money, what is coming, and how to protect your family. Josh is a longtime Bitcoiner. He's a software developer and IT professional who came up upon hard times and was rescued by Bitcoin. After a life-changing journey with Bitcoin, he's now a dedicated Bitcoiner, investing his time and energy in helping to orange pill and promote as many Bitcoiners as possible and just helping out and spreading the word about Bitcoin. So, Josh, how did you find Bitcoin and how has it changed your life?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I found Bitcoin not soon after Pizza Day. As soon as I heard about it, I started holding Bitcoin. And I'll be honest, it didn't change my life immediately. I held Bitcoin for a very, very long time. And then eventually I had some issues come up in my life and managed to recover my Bitcoin. And it saved me from a lot of hardship. And I'm very thankful.
Amazing, amazing. So, if you want to jump in a little bit more about that and just explain, maybe if you want, a little bit what happened, or
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been a news hound and invested in, following current events. And then when Bitcoin showed up in 2010, I found it, I'm a technologist. I found it to be a very interesting value proposition. I didn't really know what it would become at the time, but I thought it was interesting enough to at least hold some. And then later, much later, about 15 years later, I came upon hard times. I lost my jobs, and my significant other left me because there were some health issues in my family, and I had to reprioritize my life. And in January of 2024, I found a hard drive in my shed that I had put the Bitcoin on many, many years ago. And I didn't have a way of recovering it. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I needed help. And so, not soon after that, I went to the Porcupine Festival in New Hampshire, and that was a wonderful festival. I really enjoyed it.
now is
But
that
there,
is that a Bitcoin event? Is it Bitcoin
no,
festival?
it's a libertarian festival primarily for people who are uh, pro freedom, pro sound money. It's a very interesting collection of people, and they're very. It was an incredible event, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. But so at the event, I met a guy there named Josh Groth, and he was doing a Bitcoin workshop for self custody and how to properly self custody your Bitcoin. And I learned there in his workshop that he had helped somebody recover some Bitcoin, and my ears perked up. And so I approached him and asked him if he would help me recover my Bitcoin. And he said if I flew out to Colorado, that he'd let me stay at his house, and we recovered that Bitcoin over the course of a week. And then he put together a team of people to do it, an expert team of Bitcoiners to do it. And it was very intense for me because I had grown up poor most of my life. And like I had said, a lot of things in my life had gone bad for me up to that point. So it was very intense to go from basically having nothing and then learning, in fact, just the opposite, that I'm not poor, that I'm quite well. So that was an issue, just adapting to that. But we managed to recover the Bitcoin, and then not soon after that, I went to Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, and then learned everything I could about Bitcoin. And then I started a Bitcoin Twitter account, and I am spending pretty much all of my time working on that, promoting Bitcoin, and trying to get as many people in my friend group, in my family, and out there in the greater world using Bitcoin, because I really believe in it. It saved my life, and I just want to get as many people into Bitcoin as I can. So,
Yeah, yeah. Bitcoin really changes you, doesn't it? Yeah, and we all see that. A lot of people mightn't understand that or understand it, but it completely changes people from where they were to what they are now. And going forward, it'll change us as well. Yeah. I think it
Absolutely,
makes
yeah.
a lot of people more grateful for their lives and grateful for the things around them, and it keeps us more grounded, I think, doesn't it?
Well, no, humility is a very important characteristic to have. There are a whole lot of virtues. Humility is a very important one, and I really do appreciate the fact that the Bitcoiner community emphasizes humility. Among of all the things that they could emphasize, humility is a really great virtue to have. Because what do they say? What do the Christians usually say? They say pride cometh before the fall, or pride goeth before the fall. So it's important to stay, like you said, it's important to stay grounded. So
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. And like in your area where you're from, whereabouts you're based, what's the Bitcoin community like down there, and the Bitcoin adoption in your area?
so Bitcoin is I would so I actually checked on the Orange Pill app. I don't know if you've heard of that app,
Yeah, I've
but
heard of it. Yeah,
it's a good app, and there are not a lot of people on it in my area, unfortunately. But I can tell just based off of my activity on Twitter that the Bitcoiner community is growing very quickly. And they're in this local area. I don't really have a lot of connections with the Bitcoiner community because I just sort of found Bitcoin myself in a way. I mean, I've been holding for a very long time, been interested in Bitcoin for a very long time, but it wasn't until I recovered my Bitcoin that I started really trying to understand it better and what it represented. So I'm still on a journey of learning and getting to know the people around me and orange pilling my friends and family. So I'm hoping, in fact, that I'll be able to find Bitcoiners around me by making people into Bitcoiners. So
that's it. Yeah, change them
yeah,
in, and then it'll be they'll be all around you. There's another very good thing there that I found as well. BTC Maps. You should check that
yeah,
out. BTC
sure.
Maps is yeah, BTC Maps, and they have people can go up and anybody that's any shops or any venues that are taking Bitcoin, people can go and upload it and verify it. Yeah, that they're accepting Bitcoin. So that's another one for you to check out. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Well, I've been really trying to find all of the best arguments that I could compile to orange pill my friends and family. And it's actually a really difficult thing to do because there's so many arguments for Bitcoin, but not all of those arguments are going to appeal to every person. So you have to figure out which arguments and how to persuade people effectively. And fortunately, Bitcoin sells itself to a great extent. You don't need to do anything other than really just show people Bitcoin, and it sells itself, and that's a wonderful thing about it. And
yeah,
I like showing people the data. I like showing people all the memes I've collected on Twitter and just just getting as many people on this lifeboat as I can. That's really the main thing for me.
yeah, yeah. And there's another thing I think as well about Bitcoin. I think people need to feel the pain. Yeah,
Hmm.
and they people are on a kind of need to know when they need to know, and they know there's something wrong, or they're finding something really wrong, a light bulb moment comes up in their head about maybe inflation, the cost of money, why are things getting harder and harder? Yeah. And then
Yeah.
like it's like problem, reaction, solution. Bitcoin is the
Mhm.
solution. Yeah. But 99% of the world just hasn't copped onto that. We're just early. We're on the arc. As we said before, there's a tsunami coming. Yeah. We're kind
Sure.
of
Yeah. Well,
lucky. We're not
yeah,
lucky.
the
We
way
done
I
our
look,
work and we got on that arc, and
yeah,
we're on it now. We're just trying to get more people onto that arc before this tsunami hits.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. And to that end, the way I tend to look at it is in the lens of persuasion. So people are, myself included, are filled with biases. And to me, the most important biases when it comes to Bitcoin are normalcy bias, confirmation bias, and negativity bias. Normalcy bias is pretty straightforward. This is the way things always have been, so this is the way they'll always be, essentially. Confirmation bias is, people searching out information that they already agree with. not contrary information. So, the prevailing wind would tell you that the United States dollar is fine and there's no problem with it. But if you don't have confirmation bias, you seek out the contrary information, and then you find Bitcoin. And then negativity bias. That's another one. People, I think it's fair to say that the system overall has failed people economically, the legal system, the schooling system. There's a whole bunch of problems I don't think I need to go into, but most people understand them. And so you tell people, well, your whole world is messed up, but we've got this one thing that's going to fix it for you. And so they don't want to believe it. They're like, yeah, sure you do. We've heard all this before. So I get that. And if you can get people to overcome their biases and like you said, feel the pain, then we can get people into Bitcoin. And really, it doesn't benefit us necessarily. Uh, it's not like if I get somebody involved in Bitcoin, they pay me to do it. But they benefit, and then I benefit simply because they benefit, because a rising tide lifts all boats. That's how I see it.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, sometimes when you're talking to people newly about it, people kind of, because the fiat system, okay, uh, incentivizes people to do a bit of cheating, yeah, behind the scenes, yeah. And a lot of people can't understand, why are you telling me about this? Yeah, if it's so good, like everybody has that mindset. If it's so good, why would you tell me about this? It's like if I knew if there was a 3 bedroom house for sale, I wouldn't be telling people that it was 100 grand.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, people think you're selfish and self-interested, and you don't that you have some agenda or something. But that's one of the beautiful things about Bitcoiners is that so many of them are volunteers, and they're doing it just because it's the right thing to do.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. Same like with this podcast, yeah. I just do this, just meet people around the world and talk to people, and I take my time out, and we take a couple of hours a week to do this. If I can do 2 interviews a week, it's probably 4 or 5 hours by the time we edit them and everything, you know. So it's about, for me anyway, but spreading the word. And I found a lifeboat for myself, or the ark. I'm just trying to show it to other people, and unfortunately, most people are running the other way, but it is what it is. They'll all be running towards
Well, I will tell
Bitcoin,
you. Yeah,
and they
sure.
pay the price that they deserve, as we've all heard before.
Absolutely. I will say this personally, having had I don't know where I'm at now, but it's like a 14 or 15 million% gain since I started holding Bitcoin. That has been very useful for me in persuading people to hold Bitcoin, because it's like, you know, past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. Okay. My past behavior on Bitcoin is a 15 million% gain. So, let's just extrapolate this into the future. It's not that hard. And, maybe you won't have those kinds of gains. In fact, I'm sure you won't, but you will still have gains. And you're, instead of losing your savings, instead of your savings being whittled away by inflation and a variety of other things, taxes and whatnot, your wealth grows over time. And that actually changes your whole paradigm for how you see your money. Because fiat, I don't need to tell you, but fiat changes your time preferences. So you're driven to spend your money because your money is losing value. So people misallocate their wealth. They put it in things they probably shouldn't put it in. They buy things they probably shouldn't buy because they want to get the most amount of value out of their money that they can. Whereas with Bitcoin, we are moving from a fiat world into a world where we can actually save our money again. And in a world where you can actually save your money, everything changes. You don't want to part with your money. The last thing you want to do is spend your money. It changes, it just flips everything on its head. And your whole worldview about how you spend your money, how you look at your finances. And it's a really good change, I think. It really is.
No, it definitely is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this. Talk about a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Countries are starting to look at this now as well. The asset management firms got a Bitcoin spot ETF last year. Uh, Let's dive into that a little bit, yeah. What's it looking like? What do you think will happen yourself personally?
That's a big thing. The SBR is I think ultimately going to be a good thing for the United States, and I think there's an argument to be made that, and I know Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has made this argument that the government really has a national security imperative to start holding Bitcoin as soon as possible. So I don't think there really is much of a choice for them because if they don't, other countries will. And so that will drive them to hold it one way or the other.
Yeah. And some countries are doing it already. I well, El Salvador, Bhutan, the UK has some. Surprisingly, Ukraine has about 46,000 Bitcoin.
I wonder how
Amazing.
they put that.
I know. Yeah, crazy. Uh, there is a few countries, but I think as well, there's probably a lot of Arab countries that are holding Bitcoin as well, and they haven't announced it yet. And other countries, so there is countries holding it now, and they're all looking at it. So if America doesn't do it, another country is going to publicly come out and say that they have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and they're probably going to go in very, very heavily. And
Mhm.
if they don't do it, I'm telling you, if countries don't do it, I can see it. They're going to be at nothing in years to come. They need it.
Absolutely. Well, 100%. If it does, and if it doesn't happen at the federal level, it probably will happen at the state level. But a federal SBR, I think, would be better. That's because of the national debt being out of control and unfunded liabilities being at record highs and a whole slew of other issues that actually having solvency could fix. But we let go of that a long time ago here. So
Yeah, that's well gone, that
um,
is. And there's no going back.
yeah,
And I know there's a lot of people that talk about gold being backed by the new money going forward and everything. I think they're living in the olden days. Yeah, we're moving forward into a digital
right.
world. Yeah, we're not
Yes.
going
Well,
backwards into the old analog world that we're trying to come out of.
yes, and Jack Mallers has said, and many other people have said that Bitcoin is superior to gold, and gold already, had its heyday, but it failed because it's not as divisible, and it is prone to manipulation from centralized groups, whereas Bitcoin is, by definition, the opposite. It's completely decentralized and not subject to the whims of any one group, which is its strength compared to gold.
Yeah, yeah. Let's
And
talk
of course,
on go ahead.
I was just going to say on the subject of gold, there's infinite gold too. So I mean, if you think about the gold under the ocean or the gold in space, we're gonna be finding gold for a very long time.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think it's a scarce uh material, but it's not really scarce. It's not as scarce as what it's made out to be. They know where the gold is. If gold goes to like 4,000 or 5,000 in price, they're gonna go in there and they're gonna dig that gold out. When it was under 2,000, they weren't going in to dig it because it wasn't financially viable for them to go and put in the resources to go and dig that gold out. But the higher it goes and the more value, the higher the price goes for gold, they know where it is and they can go in and get it. Like, even for example, I think recently El Salvador is after finding a huge gold deposit worth nearly 3 trillion, I think, of gold.
I think Pakistan also found a one recently
Yeah,
too.
just over 2 trillion. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I don't think El Salvador will be, they know what they're doing regarding Bitcoin. They'll probably be taking a lot of that gold and dumping it onto the
There you go.
market and converting it
Yeah,
into the best digital asset in the world.
yeah, without a doubt. No, and that whole strategy that Bukele has with taking that IMF loan and then taking the IMF money and then putting in Bitcoin. That was an absolute masterstroke, of genius right there because there was so much controversy. I probably don't need to tell you. There was a lot of controversy between the IMF and El Salvador. That's my understanding about, the Bitcoin standard and El Salvador being on the Bitcoin standard, and the IMF wanting to pressure El Salvador to step back from Bitcoin if they wanted that loan. And Nayib Bukele, he was very adamant, and then it appears to me he didn't give any ground. He got all of everything that he wanted, and he's dumping it into Bitcoin anyway. So that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right. But you have to be a strong man or a woman in government to do that. There's not many, I don't think there's not many policymakers and leaders out there that would that could stand up to these type of forces.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, we could go into depth about that. There is a lot there, but what I would say, at least with respect to Bitcoin, is the very existence of Bitcoin was necessitated by corporate greed and corruption and all the things that Bitcoiners wax poetic on a regular basis. And Bitcoin still represents that. It still to this day represents an alternative to centralization of the money supply and a variety of other issues. So I think that's very important. And I think that the institutional adoption that we've been seeing in 2024 and the direction that Bitcoin is going, to a great extent, is the system capitulating to the people and saying, well, we can't beat them, we're going to join them. And that is good for us. That's good. I mean, I don't need to tell you that the majority of Bitcoin holders are individuals. They're not major institutions. They're not big banks or anything like that. So the fact that there's this huge influx of wealth into Bitcoin, and the majority of the people who are benefiting from that are just normal, average people, that is fantastic. And that's something I want to see accelerate as much as possible, because it's so different and so it's unusual compared to all of the other systems and issues in the world. Most of the systems we have are trying to tax us or take from us or rob us or something, and very little is actually giving back to your average person, in my opinion. So I think Bitcoin is unique in that sense. It's unique in that it is one of the few things that actually really helps the average person. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so behind it. And I know that because I'm an average person, and it's helped me a lot, like an
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, it's helped us all a lot. As we said at the beginning, it's changed so many people's lives. Yeah. Even people that I've met like that are really, really successful. They were stressed out to bits with their businesses. They were doing this, they were doing all sorts of things. I've talked to lots of people now, and they were so stressed out, and they thought they were doing the right thing. And they said, lots of people said they'd have to do some crazy things in businesses to get one over on another business or another corporation. And they don't know how those other corporations, the employees that work for them, what happened to those. And but like it kind of doesn't do it. It doesn't bring you down that path. Bitcoin
Right.
brings you down more of a love and a more humble and help people around you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a completely different way of looking at things. There's so much to it that honestly, you could spend your entire life learning about Bitcoin, and you would never learn everything that you could about it. And like you mentioned earlier, the Bitcoiner community is a very wonderful community. They're by and large very helpful, agreeable, compassionate people who really just want to see a better world. I'm honored to be associated with those people, and I've met so many wonderful people over the last 5 or 6 months in the Bitcoiner community, and I wouldn't take it back for the world. I mean, it's just been an incredible journey.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And as I was saying, once you find Bitcoin, you can't really go back.
right,
You can't go back to what life was like. Yeah. It
right,
just
and
changes us.
with respect to the perspective, the different perspective, when you have fiat currency that is losing considerable amount of value year over year, and that changes your time preferences. And you have in a way, you sort of have the bottom constantly falling out from the economy. And I think that drives predatory behavior. I think that drives predatory economic activity. And it's so funny too, because fiat in my view at least, drives so much predatory economic activity because of inflation and various other aspects. But Bitcoin is associated with criminality and drugs, even though it's like the pure alternative. It doesn't have any of these problems. And anybody who actually knows that fiat world is much more involved in that kind of stuff than Bitcoin is.
Yeah. But that was the narrative though for the last kind of 15 years. It's only
Mm-hmm.
really since and I said that before this the ETFs came in. I said and I kind of I was tracking it very closely and uh I said on January 10th, the day that happens, yeah, the whole narrative for Bitcoin is going to be it's good for your climate change, it's good for your granny, it's good for your brother, it's good for your sister, it's good for your pets. Bitcoin is going to be good for everything because the asset
Yeah.
management firms are in. They're buying as much as they can. They control the news, they control the media, they control everything out there. So there's going to be a shift. And I think this year again, there's going to be a huge shift. Yeah, to really about positive things about Bitcoin.
Well, I will tell you what I think the most positive thing about Bitcoin is. There is a correlation between economic stability or good economic conditions and parents raising their children better. And so if you fix the economy, you fix the world. And a lot of people are confused. I've been arguing with some people on Twitter recently about that. Like, how does that make sense? Well, I think if you stabilize the money, the families will have more of a cushion. They'll have more resources that they could then allocate to their children. And then those children would grow up being smarter and wealthier and healthier than they would have otherwise been because they had more attention and more energy put into them. And then after multiple generations of that, those smarter, healthier, and wealthier people will fix the world. And so if you fix them, and I really genuinely believe this, if you fix the money, you fix the economy, essentially you give the family the cushion that they need to raise their children properly, or at least, better. And then generations from now, the world will be very different than what we're used to.
Yeah.
That honestly, I know I'm kind of throwing aside a curveball at you, but I really do genuinely believe that that fixing the economy will give families the stability that they need to be better parents. And I feel like we're not going to personally. I don't think we're going to get to a point in our civilization where we want to be, where we have advanced technologies, where we're in the stars, where we have moon bases and Mars bases and life extension technology and all of this wonderful stuff that could be, if we want to get there, I think Bitcoin is the way we do it, among other things. But Bitcoin is the most fundamental aspect of making that future that we all want, in my opinion.
No, it is a good opinion. And to be honest, I seen it. Like I'm 51 years of age. Yeah, I'm a little bit, I think, older than yourself. Yeah. Uh,
Sure.
when I was growing up, and this is how it used to work for everybody around me and all families around me. Yeah. There was one person went to work, our mother looked after us. There was a better quality of life at home. Now we didn't have all the gadgets and everything that we have now, but I think life was better. Yeah, we didn't worry about it. Everybody got a meal on the table. Yeah, we mightn't have all the luxuries that we have now, but the luxuries are just distractions. And that's what it does. And like even for now here in Ireland, like they're opening creches at like you can leave your child in at like 2.5, 3 years of age into a creche. Yeah. Whereas before, when I was growing up, you started going to school when you're like 6. Yeah. So they're separating the
Mm,
children from the parents a lot earlier. two parents have to
Right.
work. Sometimes one parent has to work two jobs, yeah, just to keep
Right.
uh the food on the table. Yeah, so like,
Hmm.
how is that even actually better? People think it's better. It's not better. Yeah,
Right. Yes, absolutely. And in fact, all the data, I'm not a doctor or anything, but all the data I have seen as an amateur has shown me that, uh, you know, uh, children really need their mothers for many years when they're
yeah,
young, probably the first 5 to 8 years of their life. They need constant attention. Maternity leave in the US, I don't remember exactly, but it's like 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, it's not good. And they're having both family members work jobs and then putting the kids into daycare has been proven from what I've seen to have negative effects on the children. In particular, it raises their cortisol, being in the stressful environment, and then that sustained high levels of cortisol will have bad negative consequences for their health, for their IQ, for their income potential. It increases their likelihood of criminality. It increases the likelihood of mental illness later in life. So that early life care is incredibly important. And to my mind, finding a way to empower mothers to actually mother their children is an incredibly important thing to do. And I think Bitcoin is a great way of doing that because it allows a family to reclaim their financial security. And then, like I said a minute ago, gives them the cushion that they need to actually be introspective and consider their behavior and how they're treating their children and how they're raising their children. That's very hard to do, like you said, when you both people have to work and you're trying to make ends meet and you're trying to put food on the table. It's almost impossible. And so, anything that we can do to get one of the parents home, in my view, is a good thing. And that's one of the reasons why I support Bitcoin, because I do genuinely believe that getting people on the Bitcoin standard is going to be the fastest way of repairing the family, honestly. So,
yeah. It makes sense. I can see it anyway from what I'm looking at it over here and what's going on. But the way it is, it's bred into people now. It's like it's the norm that you start pushing your kids out when they're 2.5 years of age. Yeah. And if you're not doing it, hey, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with you. Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you taking advantage of the free year in play school? Yeah. Now they're doing it free 2 years in play school. People will be saying, why are you not taking advantage of that? And I say, because like we have a 3-year old. He doesn't go to play school. He goes out every day. He does things every day. He's got a group of friends, 4 or 5 of them. They meet up with the mothers every morning at 10 a.m. They go out and do something for 2 or 3 hours. And that's the way it is.
yeah, well, right. And I mean, by the way I frame it is I was a victim of the public school system here in the United States. And I could rant endlessly about my views of the public school system, but suffice it to say that that it really fails the children in multiple ways, in particular their education, but also their health and a whole bunch of other ways. So there's a lot of data on this. There's a lot of research on it. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up. I mean, homeschooling is, at least here in the States, I know homeschooling has exploded since COVID. Millions and millions of people are doing homeschooling with AI and automation and the internet. I honestly think that the quality of the education that a student could get just online using AI would far exceed anything that they could get in a public school environment. So, in a way, that if you care about their education, at least in my view, one of the best things that you can do is just put them in front of a computer because there's so much out there now. I mean, you have all of the knowledge of the world basically at your fingertips. It's a really incredible thing, and there's there's no reason, in my view, why we need to, participate in these legacy systems from days gone by when we have much better ways of doing things now. If parents would just take the time, do a little bit of research, and also secure their finances in particular, doing simple stuff like with respect to your kids. If you put $1,000 worth of Bitcoin away in a college fund for them, by the time they go to college, it'll happily pay for college. Now, maybe you don't want them to go to college, like we were just talking about, but nonetheless, when they get to that point where they need to launch their lives, they'll be well prepared and have the resources that they need to do that.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Well, hopefully somebody out there might see this podcast and might thinking a little bit more. What are these two? What's this Irish man and this American man talking about? Yeah, and go down that little rabbit hole. And if we can help somebody with this conversation, somebody might go down and catch something from this conversation. They might go and have a look a little bit more about Bitcoin and the economy and how to protect themselves. Hopefully that'll help. Yeah, somebody out there.
Yeah. Yes, no, I strongly encourage, and I don't gain anything from this, but I go out there and I strongly encourage people to get on Bitcoin. It's the best long-term option that you can possibly have. And I've heard people say, it doesn't matter how much you invest in Bitcoin, eventually it will be 100% of your net worth. So I think that's a good way of looking at it. The sooner you can get into it, the sooner you can start saving in Bitcoin, the better it's going to be for you and your family. That is just my genuine, authentic belief from the bottom of my heart. And I literally go and tell everybody I can to do that. So as far as child rearing and what is age appropriate for kids, I think that getting them involved in Bitcoin as soon as possible is probably the best thing. And frame it in a way, in my opinion, I'd frame it in a way that keeps it simple, but ensures that they understand that Bitcoin has it is money. It is how you save. It's not US dollars. Bitcoin is the money. And if you teach them that early, they'll understand it. For a lot of people later in life, like me, I was on a fiat standard and I had to learn how to think in a Bitcoin standard. And if you teach the kids early how to use a Bitcoin standard, then they won't have that extra step. And of course, they'll be much wealthier as well. So they're both good things.
Yeah, definitely. And like our youngest is 3. We call him the Bitcoin baby. He comes to all the conferences with us since 2022. He was only a couple of months old when he went to Amsterdam with us. And he's gone to quite a few conferences now. He's been to Madeira last year. He went to Bristol. He's been coming to our conference the last 4 years. So yeah, so it's about he's starting young. He saves all his savings in Satoshis. So how much money he's going to be like when he's 21.
Yeah, you gotta watch out. No, that's awesome. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
great.
hopefully you don't.
I personally, no, I personally don't have any children. I would like to start a family at some point in my life. I'm a big believer in that. I think, having a legacy is very important, and building a family is very important. If for no other reason than one day you're going to get old and you're going to need someone to take care of you, right? So, but it could be selfish, but still, it's not really about that. It's about having having a better version of yourself. Putting yourself into this little man, this little girl, and saying, I'm gonna make them the best person that they can be. And they won't go through the same mistakes. They won't have the same problems that I had. They won't have the same pain that I had learning about how the Federal Reserve was broken and the institutions were not just not helping me, but actively hostile to me. Maybe that pain will still be there, but it won't be nearly as painful because they're already on the Bitcoin standard. They're not dependent on those systems. There already is an alternative. you know.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. Correct. Definitely. So what's in line for you for 2025? You going to any conferences? What's the plan for you in 2025?
Yes, so promoting Bitcoin is my major thing. After that, I really want to go to Bitcoin 2024 and go to Vegas. I'm representing a couple of Bitcoin companies there, and it will be my first time in Vegas. I'm really looking forward to that. And then after that, I'm going to Porcupine Pork Fest again, just on principle because it was such a life-changing experience for me having gone the first time. And after that, I'm just really trying to promote small business adoption, try and promote regulatory efforts, local government, people trying to get on a Bitcoin standard. So I really just want to orange pill as many people as I can and uh, get as many people on the Bitcoin standard as I can. That's my main goal for 2025.
Happy days. Happy days. You might even take a trip down to El Salvador, not too far away from you, just down
I was
there.
thinking about it.
Oh, you gotta
Yeah,
go. I haven't been over there now. Either this year or next year, I'm definitely going over. So I think when
cool.
I go to, I want to go for a month. Yeah, it's a long trip, so we need to
Yeah,
make a good trip of it. Yeah, 1 week
absolutely.
wouldn't be enough for me down there.
Yeah, well, I've done a bit of research on it. I was considering maybe moving there, among other places. It's very safe there now because of Bukele's efforts, and it looks like it's a good option. So I'm looking forward to going there myself, and I hope you tell me about how it goes for you.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. And if you ever want to come over to Ireland, if you're up for that, come over to us over here in Ireland. We've got the Bitcoin Ireland conference in May. Now it's a few days before the Las Vegas one. Yeah.
Right.
But there's a
Yeah.
lot of people coming from Europe, stopping off in Ireland and gone over to the US then for their event because it's on a few days afterwards. Uh, you never know. You never know. He might come to
You know
Ireland,
what?
you
I'll
know?
I'll consider that. If I ever do go to Ireland, I would like to go to Ireland. It's a very interesting country. There's a lot of culture there. You guys are tough. Fighting Irish, right?
Oh
So,
yeah. You know us, don't you?
uh, but uh, but yeah, I would like to do that sometime. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. No problem. Okay, Josh, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, please just reach out. Secure Sex Sovereign on Twitter, SEC Sovereign on Twitter, and that's the best way to reach me right
Perfect. We put the links in the description below and we put on the screen as well. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Josh and reach out to him, just reach out to him. He's open, his DMs are open, and you can talk
now.
to
Sure.
him. Okay,
Great.
Josh,
Well, thank you.
thanks a lot. And we'll catch up again, yeah?
Please, it was very fun, and I enjoyed hearing your story. And thank you again.
Thank you.